Okay, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Roll Mangging for our Call of Cthulhu campaign. Today was a hell of a crazy session, I gotta say. Man, oh man, they keep getting wilder and wilder as shit gets deeper and deeper, man. Yeah, so we'll just dive right into it, because it's probably gonna take a while. Ed did not show up for the session at all, and he did not say anything, just nothing. Nothing. Which is not great. It's not ideal. I don't really care for it. You know, what are you going to do? We can't even find, a sixth player, let alone one to replace our fifth player, so... Yeah, it's just, what are you going to do, I guess? It's unfortunate. Alright, so... The session began on the morning of February 18th, 1925, which was a Wednesday. Time drags on. And Reginald went to, he was staying at a hotel. And he went to one of a bank and withdrew every cent he had. Massive withdrawal. Because he knows he's skipping town pretty soon. And I also believe he makes a call to his buddy Sergei, who is the captain of the ship, you know, the yacht that he uses. And he asks Sergei to basically break apart from his current employment working for the Steinway Company and instead work personally for Reginald. And they need transportation to Cairo. And after a couple persuade rolls and everything, and the promise of a generous, payment, sure, plans were made. And he'd be able to get ready in a couple days. Keeping in mind that Reginald's deadline for the painting issue, the deal, is in a couple days. So. Alright. Charlie is sitting in Maximilian's hospital room, along with Sancho, and Maximilian is pretty much comatose for this entire session, so, yeah. And a nurse comes in and delivers a note to Charlie, saying that some man, just an average-looking guy, brought in this note and asked it to give it to you. And the note said... Gavigan is having a ritual tonight at his estate in Essex. And so, a large portion, well, not a large portion, a good portion of the session was devoted to discussing this note. And discussing the idea of going out to this estate to do something about this ritual. And so, I think Sancho was the only one that was really enthusiastic about going out there to discover, what's going on and bust it up and actually do some good. Because, he doesn't like things that are evil. This is clearly evil. Reginald, from the get-go, had, obviously, no interest in going out to here. He doesn't want anything to do with it. Nothing. He's not going out there. Charlie was of kind of conflicted attitude. On the one hand, he thought, there's probably something bad going out there. It should be stopped. But he doesn't know if he's the one that, if he's capable of going out there to do it. So he wanted to have, the cops help to raid this place. Yeah, I didn't want to say too much. I let them kind of just do their discussions, but now I can talk about it in the video. It would have been very difficult for them to get the cops' assistance. It's a bit of an exaggeration, but imagine me just going to the cops and saying... Bill Gates is having this evil death cult ritual in his backyard tonight. You gotta get the whole fleet out there and just put a stop to this madness. That's basically what they would be trying to do. Would the cops ever do anything about it? No. And, you know, like, there's a world in which case they do pull that off. It's not impossible. The book mentions this. This is greatly helped if Inspector Barrington is still alive. Because he's the only one that might be inclined to listen to them. He's not like, man, I don't remember his name, so long ago. The cop that was in New York that died, you remember him, the detective. He's not like that. He's a bit more skeptical than that. But he knows shit is going down, and he would kind of at least take an interest in it. And if they were, all of them, convinced something was going down there, and they maybe had some scraps of evidence, he'd probably send one of his men to go with them to observe this ritual, if it is indeed taking place, and he would probably acknowledge it as like a black op or something like, or like a surreptitious thing. Like, do not just go up to the gate and ask about it. Like, he's telling you to just sneak in or something. He would authorize that. And if indeed they did observe a ritual, and his, the constable or whatever, the cop did come back to Scotland Yard and tell him exactly all that he saw, yeah, they would launch a full-scale raid, and the players would be out of the hands, and everything would just be wrapped up. Gavigan would be done. There is a world in which case that happens in this campaign. It certainly could happen. But with Barrington dead, you've got one player that doesn't ever want to go there. You've got some skeptical players. Yeah, they're not going to convince any cops to do anything. So that wasn't going to happen. So in the end, they put it to a vote, but they said that they're only going to go if everybody wants to go, and so Reginald was just no. So yeah, that nixed all that. They did question, of course, who delivered the note, how they knew that they were at the hospital and that this note was important to them. Who was this, and is this even for real? They discussed all that. Charlie also calls Steinway Hall at some point after he receives the note to ask for Reginald, and all he gets is an inspector. Then Inspector answers the phone at Steinway Hall saying, "Who's this? Who's calling?" So he's like, "Oh," and he hangs up. And Inspector Grief. Alright, so then outside of the hospital, they bump into a young girl. This is Jessica Harrington, who is Reefley's new character. The first female of the campaign, in fact. And of course, as whenever guys play females in pen and paper games, they're 9 times out of 10 gigantic whores. They will have sex with anybody and anything to get ahead. And there is probably some massive psychological essays about this, but that's just how it is. And Jessica Harrington is not much different. She's kind of a slut. Okay, so Jessica was sent by Jonah and all that. Pretty basic, nothing too exciting. She's a psychology student that I'm sure has had sex with most of her professors. And they quickly induct her into the investigation. Like, okay. And so they go over to Tufik Al-Sayed's shop because they want to break in there. There's stuff to be found out there. And so after a bit of excavating, exploring the outside, they eventually put Charlie Chalk on Sancho's shoulders, and he opens up the second-story window and climbs in. And so they get in there and they start rummaging around. They find a strange-looking asymmetric mirror on the wall, and it has an inscription all around it in cuneiform. And if you are unaware, for whatever reason. Cuneiform is a script. And it's basically the oldest form of writing language. At least that we know of. And so a number of different languages used the cuneiform. And so Jessica, it was actually the one that recognized this cuneiform. The two others completely botched their roles. But since they're not archaeologists, or even anthropology I might allow, they could not decipher what language it was. And so later on, much later on, Jessica and Charlie go to the library, and she wants to find a cuneiform dictionary. And after trying to seduce some college student to look for it for her, she realizes that cuneiform is just the script, and she doesn't know what language it was in. It was in Sumerian, if you're curious. But they never discovered that, and they probably never will. So, and incidentally, the only Sumerian dictionaries in the 1920s were Sumerian to German, which none of them read. So, yes, the books make mention of all these facts. Okay, they found this mirror. They didn't really make much note of it. Charlie did find something strange when he looked at his reflection, like when he provoked it or something, and so when he spoke the words to it, his reflection, his mouth lagged like a quarter of a second behind, kind of unnerving. And so they grabbed the mirror. They also grabbed, there was like a roll-top desk in the living room upstairs. And they broke open the lock and they rummaged around in that. And they found like a hidden drawer. And so the hidden drawer had a black skull cap embroidered with inverted ankhs, a metal ankh necklace thing, a black robe, a scroll, 2 metal scepters, and 2 vials full of different substances. And so I think Charlie immediately grabbed the 2 scepters, crossed them in front of him, and said, "Nyambe, thy power mine." And he felt like a surge of power rush through him. But, that's about as descriptive as I can be, because I have to make it descriptive. I can't just say, well, this happens to you, you get blah, blah, blah. It has to be kind of descriptive, so they'll never know what it really does. Or maybe they will, I don't know. They also tried on the metal ankh and the skull cap, and nothing really happened. And they looked at the 2 vials full of the substances. One was like a red syrupy substance, and Charlie succeeded on his occult roll, so he realized that this is like an alchemical substance, sometimes used in recipes for the Philosopher's Stone, but it's used in all sorts of occult recipes and stuff like that. And the other one was like a black powder with flecks of a rubbery substance, and they had no idea what that was. They couldn't figure it out. And so then Sancho pulled out his vial of that powder that he found in the Penhew Foundation, and Charlie got to look at that finally, and he realized that it was the powder of Ibn Ghazi. He doesn't know what the powder of Ibn Ghazi is or what it does. He just knows that right there is the powder of Ibn Ghazi. And that was pretty much it. They pocketed all that shit, and they left. And so I think they headed back to the safe house, that awesome safe house that Von Lyons set up for them that has saved them many a time. And Reginald at his hotel room suddenly realized that he had booked the hotel room under the name Reginald Steinway. And so he's like, oh God, Stefan, we got to get out of here. And so they pack all their stuff real quickly, and they go out in the hallway, and they see 2 constables coming down the hallway. And so Reginald like stands behind Stefan, and he's like, he puts his hat down or whatever, and he's like this. But they're like, you Reginald Steinway? And he speaks something in French, and he's like, no. And they stop Stefan, and like, is this man Reginald Steinway? And Stefan's real conflicted. He's like, yes, this is Mr. Steinway. And so Reginald invokes the name of Gulk, who suddenly appears behind the 2 constables. He's like, Gulk, make these go away. Make these guys go away. Like, okay. So he snaps his fingers, and the 2 constables go away. And so does Stefan. Never to be seen again. Pretty easy price, right? I know. Stefan was a good guy. He had to pay the price for Reginald's misdeeds. Oh boy, and Reginald did not shed a tear. So then Reginald got in his vehicle, and I think Reginald called Charlie at some point, and he got the address of the safe house. So they all head there. Okay. So they all meet up at the safe house, and this is where a lot of the discussion happened about the note and going to the Essex mansion and stuff like that. And Reginald also discussed, because they checked out a newspaper and they found out this thing about Reginald Steinway missing and wanted for questioning. And so Reginald talked about that, and he had sent a resignation letter to Steinway Hall and stuff like that. They talked about all this kind of stuff. And at some point during the conversation, when there was a bit of a lull in the conversation, they heard a knock on the safe house door, the front door. And so they all get in like the ready position. You got 2 guys stacked up on the door. You got revolvers out and everything like that. And Charlie throws open the door, and they find a little package sitting on the porch. So Reginald goes over and he looks at it, and it's a package wrapped in plain brown paper, and there's an envelope on top, and across the envelope is written Reginald. So he picks it up, he takes it inside, and he goes by the fireplace and he opens the envelope, and he opens the little card, and inside all it's written is, okay, I didn't say what it was written. I messaged Ziggy privately, so you'll have to wait for Secrets for Old Mangging for that. I could say it here, because nah, we'll save it. Needless to say, as soon as he finishes reading it, he throws the card into the fire. And he tells them that it's a package from the Penhew Foundation. And they're like, oh shit. They were getting real paranoid here, because, this is their safe house, and a package was just delivered here from the Penhew Foundation, which they broke into a few nights ago. So they're all paranoid, but Reginald is pretty certain on opening this up. So they're all like, they all get like 10 feet back. They all did listen checks to try to hear like a ticking bomb, but no. So he opens it up, and Charlie is standing there with him. I think Charlie stands there next to him when they open this, because he's like, all right, well, we've been here the longest, we should check this out. So they unwrap the paper. There's a little box there. They open up the box, and on a nice little bed of silk cloth is the Mask of Hayama, which not so long ago Alfred Hemsworth tossed into the Atlantic Ocean. Yeah. And, okay, so, of course, they all start flipping out. Except for Reginald. Because this is not, he's just like, whatever. But Charlie's like, oh my god. You can imagine. He's just like, can't get rid of it. You can't win, man. You can't win. And, so they kind of... They kind of discuss this mask, but not to a great amount. And Charlie decides that he's going to hold on to this, because they can't get rid of it. It's always going to pop up no matter what, so... He puts it in his, like, his trench coat pocket, and that's just whatever. And so, that was pretty much it. After that, they kind of just hit the hay. Gotta just pass time. And so... Okay, so it was the next day then. It was February 19, 1925, which was a Thursday. And this was pretty much most of the day was just spent chilling, you know, not too much. A lot of book reading. And eventually, at some point, they discuss passports. Because Reginald he needs a different passport. He's not going to be able to get out. Not with his passport saying Reginald Steinway. Like, there will be guys at customs and stuff. And Charlie decides he also needs one because he is pretty much wanted by the cops as well. So they're talking about, okay, how do we find a forger in London? And then they're like, oh, you know, we could talk to Mickey Mahoney. He might be able to help us. So they go down to the Scoop. Charlie and Reginald go down there. And Charlie goes into the Scoop and talks to Mickey. And says that he needs a guy that could help him with some passports. And so Mickey is not, you know, Mickey likes Charlie, but you know, these things, you gotta do something. You can't, not everything's for free in life, man. So he's like, you know, these things cost stuff. And Charlie promises him a story about the Carlisle expedition. And so he attempts to persuade, but he fails completely. And so Mickey's not really going for it. I'm going to have to do better than that. So he pushes the roll and instead offers info about this guy that's missing, this spice owner, Tufik Al-Sayed. And he succeeds on his persuade roll, so Mickey's like, alright, Charlie, you tell me what happened, you know, who murdered this Tufik guy, and I'll get you the best forger in London. And keep in mind, Reginald is sitting in the car outside. And so Charlie's like, alright, I'm not going to believe this. The guy that killed Tufik Al-Sayed is named Reginald Steinway. And we're all just like, oh, he sold him out. And so he's like, wow, all right, I got to get a story written up right away then. That's big news. He's like, all right, I'll call my guy ahead of time, and you meet him at this address. You know, and he gives him an address in an hour. And he'll take care of you. And so he's like, all right, thanks, Mickey. And he goes back out, and he talks to Reginald. And he tells Reginald, because, well, Reginald's like, so what did you have to do to get, you know, he didn't give you that info for free, you know. He's like, yeah, I told him about the Carlisle expedition. I promised him a juicy story about that. And he's like, well, what did you tell him? I mean, was that it? I mean, he bought that, and you kept pressing him, and then Charlie's like, all right. I told him that you killed Tufa Kalsea. He's like, oh, shit. And so Reginald's like, oh, man. And so Reginald's like, I think I'll take my own way back to the safe house, if you don't mind. It was very like, oh God, their relationship has been so stressed now by this revelation. And so Reginald goes back to the safe house. Charlie speaks. I'll just kind of quicken this part up. He talks to the forger guy. He pays out pretty much every cent he has to get these things, and 2 passports with new names and all that stuff with their stats. And he goes back there at like midnight. He gets the 2 passports, and everybody goes to the safe house. And while this is all going on, a lot of this session was there was a lot of private messaging between me and Ziggy. Basically between him and Gulk, you know. And so suddenly, after everybody had gone to bed, Charlie Chalk found himself standing upright, awake, with a silver dagger in his hand. And he looks up and he sees Reginald Steinway also standing there with a silver dagger in his hand. And he looks around and he sees that they are standing on top of a gigantic tower, hundreds of feet in the air. And looking around past that, he sees that the world around him is basically that painting that he saw in that closet some days ago. Basically just wrapped around them. The Mesozoic era. And so they start their little conversations. Or Reginald is basically insane at this point, but he also realizes that this is his last. This is a very good chance for him to be released from his deals with Gulk. If Charlie would just kill him, it would all be okay. And so it's crazy, right? That's the whole point. And so Charlie's like, what's going on? But Reginald eventually lunges at him, and so a duel begins. Neither of them are skilled at fighting with knives. So they started off just swinging at each other with the base skill, which is 25%. So there was a lot of misses, and even when they did finally hit, the dodges were through, and not much was happening. And so, Gulk finally was like, boring, and he bumped it up, so he increased their skill to 50. And so the fight continued for a little bit until, I think Charlie rolled double 100s on his attacks. And I was like, okay, then, you roll 100 on your attack, then your opponent immediately gets a free hit. That, it just devastated him. There was no way for him to win. Double 100s like that, it's impossible. It was too much. So, he went down to 2 health, which normally should knock you unconscious, but for this, Gulk kept him awake. And so, Gulk's just like, finish him! And Reginald sees the mask of Hayama skid across the tower top. And so Reginald goes over to pick up the mask, and Charlie, in a last-ditch effort, tries to throw the dagger at Reginald, but he just ugh. And so Reginald's just crying, and he picks up the mask. He puts it on him. And so Charlie just gets a horrific vision of Shub-Niggurath, goes insane, and runs off the tower into the painting world. Goodbye, Charlie Chai. We'll miss you, man. You were cool. You were a cool guy. And then Reginald just wakes up in his bed at the safe house. And the night passes. And it's February 20th, 1925. Which is a Friday. And so they get up in the morning, and of course, questions are asked about Charlie. But they find his room completely empty, and it's like he was never there. And Reginald's like, well, maybe he's had too much of this life, and he just escaped. He ran out, or somebody kidnapped. I don't know, but I don't know. And they tried all their, and Sancho has no psychology, and Jessica just didn't give a shit. She wasn't even paying attention. So, yeah, he got away with his lies for now. And so they eventually they chilled at the safe house for the most of the day. They drove to Southampton, and there was a part in there. Yeah, there was a part. I didn't write it down, I guess. It was kind of minor. Charlie and Jessica went to the library at a university, and Charlie looked up info about the Mountain of the Black Wind, but he found very little. Just, were rumors of folklore that people were very afraid of this place, and very few people knew where it was, but it is in Africa somewhere, but narrowing it down from there is difficult. And he also picked up an English to Arabic, like a phrase book, or an Arabic to English book. I tried to do some quick Google searches to see if this thing existed in the 1920s. I don't know. Like, the book mentions specifically about the Sumerian to German thing, because it's very relevant right there. I don't know about this Arabic thing. If somebody could confirm or deny, it'd be great. But the book's gone. It got sucked away with Charlie. It's gone forever, but he succeeded on a couple roles, so I gave him like a handwritten one that was kind of dirty. But I don't know if these things exist back then. I would assume not, but I don't know. I don't know. Okay. Alright, so they head to Southampton, and I think Sergei, or he had called Sergei again at one point the previous night, or the previous day, and he had told him on the phone that there's only going to be 4 of them. There's going to be 4 of us coming on the ship. And he had said this before he had murdered Charlie, because he knew he was either going to murder Charlie or he was going to get murdered, so there would only be 4. Okay. And Sergei had said, well, there's been, the cops are all over this place, so the only time I'm going to be able to do this is tomorrow night at 2 a.m., which, of course, is a couple hours past the painting deadline. And so Reginald actually, I love to do that, but so that's why they fought on the tower around the painting world. That was another deal made by Reginald, because he didn't want to have to sacrifice another normal person to it. And so he actually paid a price for them to have that epic duel. I won't say what price he paid, but he did pay a price. And so because Charlie was sacrificed to the painting, as promised, he didn't kill him before he could go through the painting. CoC did accept that, and so that's why there would be no more painting sacrifices. And so they arrive in Southampton, and they get through customs no problem. Because it also made a deal with CoC that if he took care of Charlie, and he also had to put the mask on him. That was part of the deal. He had to put the mask on him. And so he did do that. If he did that, he would get to Cairo. Reginald would survive and get to Cairo unhindered. So that is part of the deal. Okay, so he gets through customs, no problem. Everybody's fine. And they see Sergei up at the top of the ramp to the boat, and they do their little greetings. And then Sergei says, he's like, "Ah, yeah, 4, just like you said." And Jessica and Sancho both heard this, and so they're like, "Ah, what?" And so Jessica said something, and Reginald made up a quick lie that after Charlie's sudden disappearance, he called Sergei and told him it would be 4 instead of 5, and he like winked at Sergei, and Sergei's like, what the fuck ever, I don't care, I got paid, whatever. And so Jessica is like, oh, I don't trust this guy. She's out of her element. And Sergei's like, oh, Mr. Steinway, a friend of yours came to me and said that he would be joining us for this trip, a Mr. Golk. And so, if Charlie were there, he'd be like, what? But Charlie is not there, is he? And so, Reginald's just like, yeah, he is a friend of mine. That's good. And Sancho has heard of Golk because he has Alfred's notes from the time that Alfred was with the group, which was quite a while. And the notes don't go into detail about Golk, but they do say that Golk is somebody not to be trusted. So he's got a predetermined opinion of him, which is fine. You know, whatever. None of them trusted the first time they all met him, so whatever. And so they all go in, they board the ship, and the ship heads out. And they also both finish their books. So Sancho finishes the Gaharan Fragments, and Reginald finishes the Cultes des Ghouls, and so they get the information about that. They lose their sanity, they gain the Cthulhu mythos, all that good stuff. I think Sancho went temporarily insane from reading the book. And so I gave him ophidiophobia, I think. So he's afraid of snakes now. But that's the least of his problems. Then we also went into spells. And we haven't really delved into spells much, but here was our major start of it. I think I slightly misinterpreted how spells work, but I think I rectified it now. I'm not certain. I could be wrong. And so how I'm doing it now is for every spell that's in the book, you get an intelligence times 1 roll. And if you succeed, you learn the spell. If you don't learn the spell. But then I let them retry for every spell they didn't know the next day. I don't know if I should allow that. I feel like they're going to get a lot of spells. We'll try it for now, because spells are kind of bad. You don't want to know too many spells, because you'll just lose, you'll go insane. But we'll try it for now. If it gets really out of control, I'll put a stop to it, but yeah. So, the spells that were learned. Sancho only learned 1 spell. He learned Contact, Child of the Cosmos. And none of these are the real names for the spells, because you can't do that. If you ever DM Call of Cthulhu, don't give them the real names for the spell, because it takes all the mysticism out of it. Give them fake names for all the spells. It's much cooler than that, because if I told you a real name for the spell, this spell, Contact Child of the Cosmos, they'd probably never cast it. You know, it would just be, well, whatever. But when you have Contact Child of the Cosmos, it's like, oh shit, man, what does that do? And Reginald learned a spell, it's like, Summon the Darkness or something like that. It's like, oh man. And he also learned like destroy physicality or something, like badass shit. You know, you gotta come up with fake names. And some of the books in the rule books will give you like the fake names that the book lists them as. It's really nice when they do that, but most of the time they don't, so you have to come up with your own. Okay, so yeah, Sancho just learned the Child of the Cosmos. Reginald learned Summon the Darkness and Destroy Physicality. And Gulk told him at some point on the ship that Sancho does not trust him at all. He's an enemy. And Reginald mentioned the spell Destroy Physicality. He's like, I really would like to know this spell. And Gulk's like, well, if you get this mask of Hayama onto Sancho's face, you could learn that spell. And so Reginald ended up learning the spell on his own, miraculously. And so Gulk's like, yeah, that spell's cool, but if you still get that mask on him, I'll teach you a really cool one. I'll teach you the Fist of Yog-Sothoth. And that was just like, that is the true name for it. I did not make up a fake name because the true name is so badass. It's like, whatever, man. It's the Fist of Yog-Sothoth. It's like my favorite spell in the book. I really wanted to tempt Reginald there. And also, at some point, Reginald put on the mask himself, because he had always been curious about it since he first saw it, way back in New York. So he put on the mask himself, and he's had a vision of... Yeah, he had a vision of Yog-Sothoth. That's right. And he lost 22 sanity, so he went indefinitely insane. And his indefinite insanity is that I made it pretty special for him, because he's kind of a special character at this point. He is convinced with 100% certainty that throughout all of his life, whenever he went to church or did any prayers or anything like that, the god that he was worshipping was in fact Nyarlathotep. And he knows it with 100% certainty. And so now he gets to actually serve his one true God. He is a direct servant of it. He gets to communicate with him. That is his indefinite insanity. And so Reginald's like, Ziggy was like, wow, that's really not that bad. That's kind of good. I'm like, yeah, it's good for you. It's not good for the other players. Because now any doubts you had are all wiped away. You know for certain you are doing the right thing and you are serving your true God. And yeah, he still took the sanity hit because he saw Yog-Sothoth, but he's still there, but he's not in a great place. Okay, the group also met Charlie Chalk's new character, named Richard Blackstone. That's right, Numenera callback for those that remember it. And Richard Blackstone is basically Indiana Jones. He didn't really make too many doubts about it. He's Indiana Jones. He's a world-traveling archaeologist that has a lot of quips and stuff like that. And that's a great Call of Cthulhu character. They really needed a character like that, so I'm glad we finally saw it. And I believe he speaks Arabic, so that'll help him, since they're going to Cairo. And so they joined up with Richard Blackstone, who is a friend of Sergei's, and they told him about their investigation. Just light details, nothing too major. And Richard starts reading the Book of Daisen pretty quickly. Okay, so on February 22nd, 1925, Sunday, was when it finally happened. Gulk really tempted Reginald with the Fist of Yog-Sothoth and stuff like that. And so Reginald goes over to Sancho's cabin on the ship. He knocks on the door, and they go in, they talk a little bit, and Reginald's like, well, you see, the thing is... And he whips around and he starts casting the Destroy Physicality incantation. And so as soon as he gets like half of it done, as soon as Sancho hears it, he charges at him. And, of course, Sancho succeeds, because he's got 99 grapple. And Reginald fails his dodge roll. And he's like, oh, can I push it? Like, doing some extreme maneuver that could really hurt me? Ordinarily, I would never allow it. Because, everybody would try to push their dodge rolls then, Dodge this machine gun to the face. I failed. Can I push it? Ordinarily, I would never allow it. But, keep in mind, he has a deal with CoC going on right now that he will make it to Cairo unhindered. So I did allow it. And so he succeeds on the second one, so he does like an epic pirouette move, and he finishes the incantation. And the spell itself is called Shriveling. It's a pretty well-known spell. It's one of the more basic offensive spells. And it requires a pretty serious investment of magic points and stuff. And so with Reginald's current pool of magic points, this spell wouldn't have done a tremendous amount. Fortunately, CoC decided to boost his magic points because he figured that'd be a bit more interesting. Again, what I feel is interesting is what CoC feels is interesting, so there you go. So he basically doubled his current magic points. So Reginald threw a hell of a serious shriveling spell at Sancho. And Sancho failed the roll, taking 12 points of damage. Basically just blasting his entire body, charring it black. He did not go unconscious. He was at 3 HP. Pretty serious, but he let out a scream. And so Jessica did not hear it, but Richard Blackstone heard it. And he started to come investigating. And so Sancho tried to grapple Reginald at that point, but he was just like, that's gotta hurt. So he was just not physically capable of it. And Reginald just was like, Sancho was like in his arms, and Reginald's just like, damn you. And he put the mask right on his face and was like, ah! And so Sancho took a pretty serious, I think he saw Azathoth, he lost like 25 sanity. And so he went indefinitely insane. Kind of the common thing going here. Gotta love the mask, right? And so, again, I was looking at the kind of the sanity tables and stuff like that, and I was like, what do I want to do? I want to just give him a phobia. And I was like, no. It was just one of those click moments for me, It's like, okay. You develop a split personality that you immediately switch to. And your split personality believes that he is a man named Charlie Chuck, Private Eye. They're all just like, oh shit. Can't get rid of Charlie Chuck. And so, the mask falls off and he's just immediately like, oh, Reginald. And he just immediately goes and he thinks he's Charlie Chuck. And so how this works is basically, the human mind is just fascinating, right? So Sancho spent some time with this guy named Charlie Chuck. And we'll say for this sake that he kind of grew fond of Charlie Chuck. He was a cool guy because Charlie Chuck is. And so he gained some knowledge of Charlie Chuck and his life and whatnot. And his personality. And then Charlie Chuck went missing. Just blink of an eye, gone. Erased from existence, it seems. And so now his mind has seen something beyond all rationale, beyond all the laws of nature that we know. It betrays all of it. And so his mind doesn't accept that. It didn't happen. And so his mind also thinks that Charlie Chuck didn't go away. Charlie Chuck's still here. Here he is. And so now his mind is Charlie Chuck. And so Sancho's still in there somewhere, brooding, perhaps. But his mind also erased the events from existence. So even if Sancho does come back, he's not going to be... The last thing he's going to remember is talking to Reginald Steinway in his room. So, like, it's like if you think of like a video timeline or something, like that section's just been cut out. And so up to that is Sancho, and then after the gap is Charlie Chalk. Or what his mind thinks is Charlie Chalk. And Sancho will come back in at some point. He'll jump back into the timeline, but he won't have knowledge of Charlie Chalk. It'll just be a jump from talking to Reginald Steinway in his room to, boom, wherever they are. And so it's still traumatic to the brain, but it's better than accepting what just happened, you know. And so we've come to call this creation Sanchok. And so in my notes I have Sancho attacked, Sanchok born. Okay. So Reginald immediately flips it into high gear, and he's like, it's okay, Charlie. There's been a gas explosion. I'll get you out of here. And so he takes him out, takes him into another room, and Richard Blackstone is standing there in the hallway, and he's like, oh, God. And so... so they take him into another room, they put him down, they attempt some first aid on him, it doesn't work. So they call in Golk, who brings in his doctor's bag, and Reginald asks Golk to make the room seem like a gas explosion happened, because otherwise there's going to be too many questions. So Golk does that. He makes it look like there was a gas explosion. And so they go in, and it's Golk, Reginald, and Sanchok sitting there in this room. And they close the door, and Golk takes out some vial that makes Sanchok fall unconscious. And so he sits there and talks to Reginald, and he's like, so, what are we going to do about this? And so, it could go either way, you know. Sanchok could easily die from his injuries. Or we could patch him up. And so we asked, Ren what he wanted, and he liked this whole duality thing, the split personality, and I agree, that's something we haven't really delved into, but I should do more. It's cool. So he's like, yeah, I'd like to continue this. And so Golk's like, I just find it so fascinating how the human mind can shatter. Like, this is what Nyarlathotep likes, is shit like this. Like, because he's experienced, thousands and thousands of different species, but, look at the human mind and how it can break and try and repair itself. It's fascinating. So he's like, yeah, I'd like to see this continue. So he does a mediocre job of patching up Reginald. He could just snap his fingers and he'd be at perfect health, but he just needs to make it look like he did something. So he recovered like 2 health or something. Sanchok is still in not great condition. And Richard talks to the captain, and the captain sees what happened. He's like, oh, God. And so he also discusses this with Jessica, too. And they all kind of they mention the fact that they didn't hear any explosion. They find this kind of odd. And Jessica tells Richard that, she doesn't trust Reginald Steinway at all, and this is all his fault, and something's going on here. She's getting in over her head, man. Just leave it alone. Look at what happened to Sancho. And they're all like, oh, God, that's enough for tonight. And so they retired for the night, and we retired for the session. So, yeah, man, oh, man. Like, this is becoming, this is not a cohesive group. I don't know if you can tell, but this basically, certain members of the group are against Reginald Steinway, and other members of the group don't know what's really going on. So, yeah, we're gonna see how long Reginald Steinway can hold out. He's in, I can't, his character now is beforehand he was like, I just want to get out of it, release me from this purgatory, you know? He wanted Charlie to kill him desperately. But now he's like, he's serving his dark god, you know? This is his dream, is to serve his master. So it would be real unfortunate if something bad were to happen to him. And so basically, CoC will, for NPCs, an NPC is unlikely to kill Reginald at this point. CoC likes keeping him around. But if a player does succeed in killing Reginald, and Reginald's power is going to continue to grow, he does know the Fist of Yogg-Sothoth, Thoth, and I did bump up his power to 20, although I didn't mention that to anybody else. So he's getting formidable as a sorcerer, but he's still mortal. So if a human player does manage to strike down Reginald, I'll allow it. You know, that's how it is. And so Reginald will die, but you know, we'll see how it goes. God, that's crazy. What a campaign, man. Too good. Too much fun. Too much fun to DM. I'm enjoying the hell out of it. So yeah, next time they will arrive in Egypt. Oh boy, that country is not ready for them. And they are not ready for the country, I guess. Dark things are happening in Egypt, I can promise you that. So yeah, in Secrets of Role Mangging, we'll discuss kind of all my internal thoughts about all these decisions I made and where the campaign is going, and we'll discuss more things about Egypt in general. But yeah, so Reginald is kind of the key figure of this campaign so far, interestingly enough. Growing more evil and more powerful as time goes on. I would not be shocked if he joined the cultist side. And I could easily do that. But I have plans for Reginald, so... His sanity is dwindling as well, by the way. He's only at about 13 sanity, I think. So it wouldn't take much to send him over the edge. Since he's pretty much going to fail every sanity roll from now on. But, yeah, that about wraps it up for me. It's pretty late now, so I'm gonna be done here. Unfortunately, we're not going to be playing Call of Cthulhu for about 3 weeks, as next week is D&D. The following week I'm on vacation, so 3 weeks from now we'll come back. Hopefully you guys watching all remember what's going on. I'll try to give a recap at the beginning of next time, but... Okay, so my name is Mang. This has been Roll Mangging, and I'll see you fine folks in 3 weeks.